Steps into it. Pass is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Vikings win it!
Strap yourself in and get ready.
Here we go!
The leaders in fantasy football are incoming, giving you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and dominate your mates. You're now listening to the Insight NFL Show with your hosts, Guns and Maverick.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
G'day guys and welcome to another episode of the Insight NFL Show. Sorry about the delay, we had some technical difficulties. We're both lacking a bit of hair on top.
That one's on me.
So
that one's on me.
Just got to get through that part, but we're good. We're back in here. DFab's joining us live, mate. How you going, mate?
Mate, I'm sensational. How you doing?
It's a bit hard, mate. I don't really know how I'm going, to be honest. All in all, I had a pretty good fantasy week. I'm in 7 leagues and won 6 of them. So it's very rare that you can say that.
You especially.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, had a pretty good week, but none of my leagues actually scored that high. I was just sort of subpar, apart from our home league, of course. So
it was a weird week.
An outlier in that one.
Weird week.
But all in all, mate, it was a really weird week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
You know, we had some returning players as well.
Sorry, you go.
We had some returning players as well. We had some players that sort of gone down injured. Guys that haven't really been performing all year. And sort of like on that bubble of do you play them, do you drop them, do you trade them? Like it's a bit of a hard one too. Like it's been one of those years where injuries will come down to finals and see how far you can get with them.
Yeah. It's been really hard to kind of pinpoint the NFL as a whole this season, but this week in particular, it was the guys that had good matchups seemed to fall through the floor and couldn't buy themselves a yard. And then there's people that in games where maybe they shouldn't have went absolutely nuclear. It was a weird week.
For sure. Well, mate, I reckon we should get stuck into it. Let's start with the Friday game, mate. This was an absolute peeler with the Ravens and the Bengals. Absolute shootout. That second half was off its fucking head.
It was wild.
Now I'm going to start with the Ravens, mate. They had a massive day. Like Lamar had 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry still did what Derrick Henry does. Bit on the smaller side of things, 68 yards and 1 touchdown, but you know, still decent score nonetheless. Mark Andrews was fine too, but the one who didn't eat this week was actually Zay Flowers. Now, Zay Flowers is coming off a couple of weeks where he's gone bonkers, but this week he couldn't really get involved. What do you think about Zay Flowers moving forward for the remainder of the season?
I'm a little bit worried about it. All the advanced analytics say that Deontay's eating into his route tree, and it's his opportunities that are starting to drop. Rashad Bateman's still out there. He's still stretching the field. It's Zay Flowers that's starting to suffer. I mean, granted, against Denver, he had a wild day, had the 2 touchdowns last week. But this week against a really competitive Cincy team that probably played a lot better than maybe I thought they had the ability to defensively. They looked really, really solid at times. Zay, he couldn't get it going this week. Like he still had 6 targets, but he just could not get it going for the life of him. And as I'm a big believer in Deontay's talent, I think Deontay Johnson is a bona fide, like he's an all-pro. I don't think that was by mistake. Like he's a really talented bloke. And that makes me worry for Zay Flowers. I think if that's the way that the coaching is going and it's eating into his opportunities, that's a bit panic stations considering he's in half PPR, the wide receiver 5.
So what really concerns me is Bateman and Tyler Wallace that was getting all these long balls, right? They were absolutely eating into the long balls. And Zay Flowers is more like your in-motion type player and, you know, getting all those screen plays and stuff like that, which is all well and good, getting those short to intermediate passes as well. But if he's not getting that long ball, mate, and let's be honest, he's good enough to beat any corner in the league. He's that quick.
Yeah.
Obviously, height is restricted, but all in all, one-on-one, he could nearly beat any corner league based off pace. And they're not putting him in that like they're not putting him out wide to do that. So it does concern me. If I'm in a Zay Flowers owner, I'd probably look to be trading him, to be honest with you. Seeing if you can package him up with something to try and get an upgrade. Like he's going to have his games where he goes off. Like he will. Mm-hmm. But like we're talking about a consistent fantasy option for the remainder of the season. I can't say it was Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if you're stuck with him because I think he's still going to have weeks where he blows up. I'm not going to sit here and overreact because I think they've got such a spoil of riches that he's going to be more efficient. But I am worried. I'm not like panic selling him, get whatever you can because he's waiver wire fodder. But if you can get someone of equal value, someone that could be pushing, top 20 wide receiver by end of year, I think that's a move I make. And like their run home, actually, it's not horrible. That's a really hard one. If I had Zay Flowers, I honestly don't know what I'm doing. They've got a nice schedule on the way home too. That's really hard.
It's just like inconsistent play for Zay Flowers' mind that just gets me. As I said, he's good enough to be a top 12 wide receiver in the league, but they don't want him to. They've got enough weapons there.
Yeah.
They've got Derrick Henry. They've got Lamar, who obviously can do once. And then, Bateman stretches it. Like, it's just crazy, this offense. Like, Lamar's just got this on a string, really. And look, if we're worried about Deontay Johnson coming in and having some sort of role for the remainder of the season, then that just hurts Zay Flowers even more.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, agreed.
On the Bengals side of things, mate, it's hard not to mention Jamar Chase when you talk about the Bengals this week. I mean, 11 for 264 and 3 touchdowns, and the second and third one was just fucking ridiculous. Like, you just knew the third one was going to happen, right? But all in all, mate, the most impressive thing that I found for the day, obviously, it was Jamar Chase number 1, but number 2 was Chase Brown having 11 targets.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they need to throw the ball somewhere. So I understand why he got them. But he looked quite impactful with those targets too. It wasn't just like a dump off and possession catch and drop down. Like he looked like he was quite dynamic with that opportunity. So again, he's a smaller bloke, 5'10", 210. He's not a particularly large guy. He's had 40 rushing attempts in the last 2 weeks. Now he's starting to run all these extra routes. I wonder, is he going to be able to hack it doing that going through into the offseason? So Herbert might be one to watch. I think they're going to start giving him a bit more run on the ground. I reckon that's why they may have brought him in. But Chase Brown is a revelation. He could be a waiver wire pickup of the year by the time it's all said and done because he looks phenomenal.
I'm glad you mentioned Khalil Herbert because, obviously Zach Moss being IR now. So he's out for a minimum 4 or minimum 3 now, I suppose. Khalil Herbert, they've got him in for a 7th round pick. He may see goal line carries. That's where he gets his best work. Or he may just alleviate a bit of pressure off Chase Brown. Do we see him having a role as a fantasy option?
Look, traditionally, if I look at the way the league's gone the last 5 years, I would normally say no. But I look at, obviously this is the be-all and end-all example, but you look at what Monty and Jahmyr Gibbs can do. I see a world where they can complement each other quite well. Khalil Herbert is a big bruising, through the tackles kind of runner, can handle getting banged around a little bit, great in the red zone when he's granted an opportunity. And Chase Brown, as we just talked about, hyper dynamic. He's quite quick. I think they could complement each other quite well. And especially with T. Higgins being so banged up, they're counting on Gesicki, who is talented, but traditionally hasn't been someone you can rely on for a month at a time, let alone a stretch run into the playoffs. I think Khalil Herbert does garner, we're talking like a 30 to 40% snap share, maybe 5 to 10 opportunities a game, but I think there's value in having him.
Now, I haven't really mentioned Jamar Chase or anything like that yet. And look, let's be honest.
Jamar Chase is a sore spot for me.
He's probably the number 1. Oh, me too, mate. I've traded him too in a different league. too, and
It hurts.
It hurts. But like, let's be honest, he's the number one receiver for the remainder of the year in a real pass-heavy offense too. So he could be a league winner for trades for him because he could go. Like, he has these games where he goes big, like 50 points on Friday. Like, that's just insane. Like, that just wins a match up single-handedly. So and especially now he's playing for a contract too. He's an angry Chase.
Yeah.
Spot on.
Granted, he's got a tough run. He's got a tough run home. Like, the Chargers have been like arguably the number one defense in the league this year. Got his bye round 12. Pittsburgh, Tomlin, especially towards this time of year, he's a defensive jet. Always seems to kill it. Dallas, he's going to eat because it's Dallas and Dallas suck.
Yeah.
Sorry, mate. But
I will say though,
Cleveland week 16, Denver week 17.
Yeah. You see Satana week 17. That's going to be the matchup.
Yeah, it'd be fun to watch. Fucking oath. Yeah.
Let's move on to the next game.
Yes.
Mate, that was the game in Germany this morning. It was a bit of an interesting game to dissect. Bit of a snooze fest if you're a neutral fan as such, but fantasy-wise, it was very interesting. Now, the Panthers are actually on a win streak. First time in God knows how long.
Why?
But I'm going to start with the Panthers, mate, and I'm going to mention this straight off the bat. They thought Brooks would be back this week. He was inactive.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders went down, did not return. Chuba Hubbard saw 28 carries. Chuba Hubbard's been on an absolute tear for the year. Just got rewarded with a new contract, mate. People have brought in Brooks throughout the year just to think that this guy might be the number one and might be a league winner come playoffs. But I think it's going to be Chuba Hubbard, mate.
Mate, RB7 in half PPR leagues. He is arguably the biggest. I'll probably say that with a bit of hyperbole, but he's one of the biggest shocks of the draft. I haven't seen anything like this from Chuba, especially with, like, even now that Bryce Young's back at the helm, it still looks hyper impactful. I don't know what has gone on. The offensive line looked dominant. Like, they just can't seem to. Yeah. Doesn't matter if teams attack. Like, teams will stack the box. You know, they have 7-man fronts, knowing that it's going to be a run, and they still can't stop him. You know, as you said, he had 28 rushing attempts, 6 targets through the air, 4 catches. Like, insanity. But I couldn't come at a better time for him too, just quietly. But Jonathan Brooks is a weird one because they started the year and all these beat reporters saying he'll be practicing by week 1, should be playing by week 2. So I got a bump in the draft, and it just, it'll be closer to week 8. Oh, now it's week 10, and he's still partially practicing and not playing. Dangerous. I don't know. That's not. I wouldn't be envying anyone with Jonathan Brooks on their squad.
And especially, like, I'm going to look at this in the redraft in a dynasty facet, I suppose. Now, obviously, Chuba Hubbard was on that new contract, right? So he's staying. So that definitely hurts Brooks' ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a lot of reporters out there that said, you know, if Brooks didn't do an ACL in college, he may have been a first-round pick, and that's probably true. He may have. But this is just going to be probably at best, man, I reckon a 50-50 split. Look, I don't think it'll be that this year. I think it'll be Chuba's for the remainder of the year. It might be a 75-25 at best.
I think so too.
But moving forward, mate, I do not see Brooks, should I say, taking over this offense in a dynasty perspective and being the number one bell cow.
Yeah, failing some kind of injury where they're forced to give him the lion's share of carries. This is Chuba's spot until further notice. So I think your opportunity to buy him is probably gone. I think if you're a Chuba owner, you hold him till the wheels fall off because he's just too good and there's too much uncertainty over Jonathan Brooks. If you can offload Jonathan Brooks and get something, that could be a play. But I mean, what are you going to?
That's a big if.
What are you going to trade for that? Like,
what are you going to get? You might give him to the Chuba Hubbard owner.
Yeah. Like if you could do that, this might sound rogue. If I could get like a Ray Davis back or one of those like really high value handcuffs, I'm probably more inclined to hold one of those guys over, or if I can get like a Raheem Mostert over Jonathan Brooks, I doubt that owner's going to do it. But if you can get someone like that, I'd be taking that every day of the week.
Agreed, mate. On the receiving end of the Panthers, there's not much there that I really liked. I was pretty disappointed with Legette's week this week, 3 for 40. I wasn't, look, against the average secondary at the Giants. I was expecting him to eat, if anyone, but I guess when you have Bryce Young at the helm, you're going to be restricted.
It makes
and
it
then
hard.
there's nothing else there that I really like.
Yeah. I didn't mind what I saw
on the Giants side of things, mate.
I didn't mind what I saw from Coker. He looks like he can run a decent route. I don't mind him. He's not fantasy relevant, but could be down the track. He looks okay.
Yeah, and he's perfect for the slot too. He's a very good route runner too. So yeah, absolutely, mate. On the Giants side of things, mate, it was very, very disappointing if you're a Malik Neighbours owner who has got injured, maybe done a hammy or he's got a concussion as well. Like, we don't know where he's currently at, but he's been banged up for the whole year pretty much. If he's got a concussion, which we'll know probably more in the morning, that's a massive concern. If it's 2 in a month, see what happens in the morning with that report. But all in all, mate, that was pretty gross from Danny Dimes. Like, seriously.
Yeah, it's not surprising against. It is a little bit surprising. If there was ever a game where he was going to show out, it should have been against this Carolina defense, which is porous at best. But 2 interceptions, like, just trash. I am a big fan of what I saw out of Tyrone Tracy, but the receiving game, anyone that's really relying on Danny Dimes, it's not a good look. Pretty gross.
There's a couple of highlights that I saw throughout the game, early games. I didn't watch much of it. But I did see a couple of highlights where Danny Dimes had plenty of time in the pocket, a wide open receiver, and missed him. It's just poor QB play. He's on very limited time until he's done. But that's the best case scenario for the Giants at this stage, really.
Yeah, early dynasty pick, but I would be picking up whoever the Giants decide to get with their first round pick, because I can almost guarantee it's going to be a QB.
Absolutely. All right, mate. Let's move on to the well, it wasn't really the early morning game slates because that was the earliest. But we'll move on to the next one, mate, and that will be what was it? It will be the Pats and the Bears. Let's start there, mate. This was interesting to say the least. Now I'm going to start with the Bears, mate. I'm going to go with the Bears because they're in the hot seat hard. The offensive coordinators and the head coaches in the hot seat. Caleb Williams, I don't know. He's always under pressure. Got sacked 8 times. But mate, when you've got such good route runners in DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, like, we're talking like very, very good route runners as such, and you cannot find them at all, or find a way where you can get them open, run a play. Like, it's just gross. I'm out on DJ Moore for the remainder of the year until this guy starts really seeing anything. I'm actually out the whole offense apart from maybe Swift.
Yeah, Diva Moore, mate. The footage that, I don't know if you saw it throughout the week, all this footage of DJ Moore giving up on routes because he feels like it's not going to him, and there's a pass that's thrown last week and it's like a wide open touchdown. Like, I'm way out on DJ Moore. He just looks like he's cracking the sads. Having a sort. Keenan Allen's doing okay, but he looks old. He looks like a bloke in the twilight of his career, which makes sense. He's 32, coming off an injury. Roma Dunze is really disappointing. You would have thought that with the I guess the chemistry that was built in college between Caleb and Rome, they both, they played together. I would have thought there'd be a little bit more, but like, he went 6 targets for 3 catches. This isn't like 3 of these targets were horrible. They're bouncing out of his hands. Like, it drops, and it's just gross football. I'm a bit out on Caleb. I'm sensing more of a like Trevor Lawrence kind of narrative than anything else, because I don't think it'll get pinned on the coach, of course, but I don't think this is a coaching thing. I don't think it's a bad opportunity thing. Caleb Williams isn't as good as we expected. He's going to show flashes here and there, and he's going to look great at times. But if he's under pressure and they're able to get to the QB, he's, for lack of a better term, he shits the bed. He can't handle pressure, and he looked pretty horrible, to be honest.
And I must admit, mate, he's not the only player that's had a poor offensive line in their career, right?
Correct.
It's the fact that he can't scramble around as such. And like, so the first 2 or 3 sacks that I saw today, he had a bit of time where he just stood there, slightly moved, and still had a lot of time, might I add, but just could not find an open man or anything like that. I mean, DJ Moore having 4 targets also is very, very shit. DJ Moore should be commanding at least 8+ targets a game. And you've just paid him to be like the alpha number 1 for your franchise too. So if you're targeting him in 4 times in a game where you're losing for the majority of the game, like game script wise, it's just not in your favor. This guy should be getting and commanding 8 or 9 targets minimum.
Yeah, I have noticed a bit of a theme with Caleb that those 3 big name receivers will almost always have the same amount of targets every game. It's almost as if he's got a KPI of making sure the 3 guys all get the same amount of pill, which could end up being phenomenal if he can put it together, become an accurate QB, and for like purely football purposes, be awesome for Chicago. But he doesn't have that arm talent. It's putting too much pressure on it. He should be, like you said, funneling guys like DJ Moore, put them in space, because when they've got the ball in their hands, they're fucking good, and they're going to make things happen. But it feels like Caleb's maybe not as good as everyone thought, and he's also being set up for failure a little bit in this Chicago offense.
Onto the Pats side of things, mate. I'm going to mention this real quickly because the Pats aren't really too fantasy relevant as such. But there was one guy this week who was a massively good streamer option, Hunter Henry, who's been eating the last like sort of month or two. He saw nothing in this game at all. I think he saw a late catch that was a 14-yard catch in the last 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, mate, it was a big fat goose egg. So that was a bit disappointing for mine because there would have been a lot of players this week for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't see him on the field that much. So, granted, I wasn't paying particularly much attention to the Pats and the Bears game because it's, let's be honest, it's the Bears and the Pats. But I'd be interested to find out how his snap share went because he has been playing, 85, 90% of snaps most weeks and running routes. I can't think of a reason why he wouldn't have been targeted. It wasn't like anyone else was hyper-targeted. Granted, Drake May only attempted 25 passes. So, Stevenson had some success on the ground. The Pats defense looked quite good, having 9 sacks. It was a pretty easy game where they didn't have to really challenge the Bears' defensive unit. And, again, the Bears have a very good defensive side of the ball. So it was always going to be a grind. But, Hunter Henry was a bit of a disappointment. But so have 95% of tight ends this entire year.
Yeah, and that's the problem with tight ends. It's so inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know which one's going to pop up or not. But I just thought the matchup-wise, it was going to be good for him. And being the safety blanket for Drake May as well. And for a rookie QB, they usually get peppered all the time. But in this case, it just didn't happen. So all in all, mate, I want to move on from the Pats. There's not much else there that I really like. Ramondre did Ramondre sort of stuff. But outside of that, I don't love it. Next game of the week was an interesting game. This was very, very interesting. But Bills and the Colts. Now,
I loved this game. I'm going
to start with the Colts. Mate, I did not think coming into this week that Joe Flacco would have 3 interceptions in the first half. And a fumble, might I add. And I'm sitting there on my couch at 6 a.m. going, we're about to see Anthony Richardson return.
I thought the same thing. I was like, how is it that we've seen Anthony Richardson get, granted by his own decision-making, get him in there, like he's getting benched halfway through a game, and then not 2 weeks later, it's the opposite. And Anthony Richards coming back in, and everyone that we thought had value in the receiving core is now gone. It was weird game. But it was somewhat entertaining, though. It was a fun game to watch. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too, mate. And, albeit they made a late comeback to a degree, they sort of relied on Jonathan Taylor a lot to really sort of funnel the offense through him. But, Josh Downs 72. Should have had a touchdown too. He dropped a wide open touchdown. It looked like he just tried to celebrate before he actually caught the ball. That was home and hose. That was a guaranteed, 30-yard touchdown or whatever it was. But yeah, Josh Downs, mate, for the rest of the year, he's going to go to the moon, I reckon. He's looking really, really prominent. We don't know how long Pittman's out for. He's been carrying that back injury, but until Pittman gets healthy, man, he's going to be a non-factor. He can't move.
Yeah, agreed. And if I'm Jonathan Pittman, if I'm Michael Pittman, I'm almost willing to just tap out on the. I don't know why I said Jonathan Pittman. If I'm Michael Pittman, I'm almost willing just to tap out on the year, think about your career longevity, and let these young guys just have a crack and let the cream rise to the top. Because I think all three wide receivers that showed any kind of prominence this last week looked phenomenal. Adonai Mitchell surprised me. He looked really, really good, and there's some chemistry building with him and Flacco. Josh Downs is Josh Downs. He's probably the number one there. Definitely looks like the most talented. And Alex Pierce, that field stretcher, he's electric. If he can get half a step on that corner, especially if they're pressing, mate, he is gone. He's fun.
Agreed. Yeah, mate, I agree. And Joe Flacco, all in all, had his 3 picks. Terrible, don't get me wrong. But he still threw for 272 and had 2 touchdowns on, decent percentage. So you take those 3 picks away, or take 1 pick away, and they may have been half a chance in the game. But let's see how he goes. They still back him into the remainder of the year. Let's see how long that lasts.
For sure.
I still believe at some point they'll bring back Richo.
I think if the season's done, they will. Purely out of development, but then it's going to be really ugly. It's going to be gross. I almost want them to not. I'd like Anthony Richardson to just leave. Not go through the Trey Lance nonsense. Just you've been paid. Just enjoy a life of comfort.
Yeah. On the Bills side of things, mate, we did not see Amari Cooper yet again, which was a massive surprise for mine. 2 weeks in a row. Guns called a couple of weeks ago that he didn't realize that Amari Cooper has now picked up a coaching role. That's probably not far off, which is not bad. which is strange. Which is strange because someone of that caliber really should be, well, I guess dominating, but he hasn't been playing. So, look, all in all, mate, if he's not playing, that's great for him. Because obviously not healthy, that's fine. But he's also learned the playbook as he goes along too. So, I do expect him to come back in and dominate.
Yeah, I'm interested to find out if it's really a health thing or if it's you're a bit older, rest up. Let's just pretend this niggle is something that you need a couple of weeks for. Get your playbook right so you can come in and again, they're 8-2. They're pushing for a deep playoff run. They want him firing big. So I think there might be a little bit of gamesmanship going on with Buffalo, but so they should. Take care of Amari, make sure he's healthy, make sure he feels valued, make sure he knows the playbook so he doesn't get hurt, and then go to town. It's going to be important, though, with Dalton Kincaid going down with the knee.
Yeah.
How major that is. I know he tried getting back out there in the second quarter with a brace, lasted 2 snaps. He's like, nah, can't do it. He's been disappointing yet consistent. Definitely not what you thought you were getting with Dalton, but he's at least he's salvageable in your tight end spot. So definitely a big loss for fantasy if he's gone.
So he's been consistently disappointing is what the words that I got out of that. Coming into the week, he was a tight end 12. You know what I mean? I had high hopes for him to be pushing number 1. I thought he'd be a sure thing for a top 5, to be honest with you. I thought he was a definite sure thing. But disappointing to say the least. James Cook today had his day saved by that late touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to quickly ask, do you think Dawson Knox is a plug and play for Kincaid owners? Can they just take Dawson Knox, chuck him in and hope that he's going to get that 6-7 targets that Kincaid normally gets?
I think he can. He's done it before. I think it wasn't last year, the year before. He was top 8 tight end of the year that year, playing with Josh Allen. So now that he's got no competition in Kincaid, depending on how long Kincaid's actually out for, I think Dawson Knox could be a plug and play option. He's a red zone threat. I think he's fun. If you needed a tight end and you're desperate, then he could be the guy. He could be He could have top 15 upside easy.
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, as I was saying, mate, James Cook had his day saved today with that touchdown. He doesn't score that touchdown. He probably scores 8 or 9 points, which is still okay. But you got the big scores out of James Cook. You're looking at him for 20 plus the way he's been going this year. And Josh Allen too, might I add, mate. He didn't throw any touchdowns and had 2 picks, but had his day saved fantasy wise on that rushing touchdown as well. So
yeah, yep, agree.
So all in all, mate, is what it is with the Bills. That's what they do. They win games, they score all right, we move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Let's go to the next game, mate. And that was the Vikings and the Jags. Now, I did not see Sam Darnold coming into this game absolute shitting the bed like he did today. Especially with a full array of weapons of Hockenson, Jefferson, Addison, Aaron Jones. He looked horrendous. Now, I'm putting it down to one bad game. But Jesus, mate, I was expecting this guy to be like a top 8 QB coming into the week.
Yeah, put it down to, honestly, same kind of description that you'll have for someone that we'll talk about later in Jared Goff. Some people just have bad weeks. Sometimes in the NBA, Steph Curry has a bad shooting night. I think Darnold just had a bad night. He still passed 38 times. They were able to weasel out a win, but he just looked quite uncomfortable the entire time. Weirdly enough, though, like Aaron Jones was still decent, 17 for 88 and 13 through the air off 2 catches, like 11.1. If that's your floor, you're taking that without with no score, no touchdown scored for the game. Like that's not horrible. Jefferson for a floor play. He only had 48 yards, but still finished with a 7.3. That's okay. Yeah. Like you can take it. Hockenson looked great though. 9 targets, 72 yards. He looked good. That was nice seeing him up and about.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to get better and better as the year goes along. He could be a league winner for anyone who did take him late in their drafts and held him for this date and are contending. Could be a serious play for the remainder of the year. One to monitor as well, mate. Aaron Jones did go down with that ankle injury, I think it was.
I didn't even see that. There you go.
Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did return back into the game, so that's probably a good thing. But Cam Akers did see 13 carries as a result of Jones going down with that injury.
Yeah.
So that is one to monitor.
If I can give any advice, unless you're desperate for a running back, don't get dragged into the Cam Akers hype, even if you see him at the top of the trending list. If unless you're desperate, you just need to plug and play, which granted you might need to coming into, week 12, week 14, we've got a lot of people on bye. And if Aaron Jones does miss a couple of weeks with what looks like a chest injury, he can be worse. He's never, even when he's had opportunities, he's never done anything with it. Cam Akers is not someone to be spending fab on. Don't burn high waivers, but if you need someone, he might be a decent plug and play.
Yeah, I agree, mate. And he was inefficient too with his touches as well. 2.9 yards per carry. Not it. He did start at one point. Who did he play? Who did he start for at the start of the year? It was Joe Mixon. He played for the Texans, and seriously, his yards per carry were terrible. He was just touchdown dependent. I agree, mate. Disgusting for mine. On the Jag side of things, mate, this was absolutely disgusting. Mac Jones came in and spotted in for the injured Trevor Lawrence. He was pretty crap. 2 picks, 111 yards. Now, what I do want to mention, mate, is Tank Bigsby went down with an injury, did not return. Etienne got majority of the work, and I don't know why they just didn't use him all. 11 carries and 44 yards. Like, it's 4 yards a carry. It's not too bad.
You take it if you're taking 4.
All in all, mate. All in all, you just can't trust Travis Etienne at the moment. Now, let's see how long Bigsby's out for. If Bigsby's out long term, 2, 3, 4 weeks, Etienne probably rises to the top. But ceiling could be quite low.
Yeah, I think. Travis Etienne. They've had a bad run. So the Jags have had Philly last week, Mini this week, Detroit next week, and the bye. So it's not particularly nice for the Jags, that's a bit of a murderer's row of opponents. So it only makes sense that they've looked quite hopeless the last 3 to 4 weeks. Coming out of the bye, though, they've got Houston, Tennessee, the Jets, Vegas, and then Tennessee again. If you've got it's tough in that they're teams that can score, but they're not particularly stout run defenses, and the Jags are going to need teams to go. Like the Jags are going to need offense somehow. So if Tank's out for a couple of weeks or even out long term with that ankle, he's been nursing an ankle injury for a while. He's re-aggravated it in game. If they choose to shut him down, or if he's out for 3 or 4 weeks, I feel pretty confident about starting Etienne as a flex with RB2 upside. Not the worst kind of guy to have in your flex.
I will say though, mate, last year Travis Etienne was sort of matchup proof. It didn't matter who they played; he's going to score. For me, and now I'm not massive on Etienne this year. I've got him in one of my leagues myself, and I'm one of those owners that are getting a bit restless. Yeah. But in saying that, he would be a nice buy low option. He wouldn't cost you much at this point. There'd be a lot of restless owners out there with Etienne. So if you can trade him for, I don't know, a Raheem Mostert would be another one that comes to mind. I wouldn't do it personally, but you know.
Let me throw an option out there for you.
Get away with something like that.
Travis Etienne for someone like a Jamison Williams. Some of that like high ceiling but low floor wide receiver, boom bust in a good offense. Who do you prefer?
It depends where you're at. If you need a running back, Etienne. If you don't, Jamison Williams. If I was to pick one, I would probably go. Honestly, I'd probably go Etienne.
Yeah, and I think that's the line. Yeah, I think that's the line though. If Bigsby's out, I think that's the line. If you're happy, if you've got depth in wide receiver, you can stick with Etienne, and he could be okay. He could win your week. He could lose your week. It's risky. But if you are insistent on moving him, I think if Tank's out, if you could go get a Jamison Williams, or it's a shame he's down. So, but like a Raheed Shaheed, that kind of build of player, someone that's going to be that like, that field stretcher. You're just hoping to get, the big touchdown play. And if he does, it'll win you a week. And if he doesn't, he could donut. I'm happy making that kind of trade for Travis if Tank's out for a couple.
I'm going to quickly mention the wide receivers very quickly. There's not much really they mentioned in this game alone. But, let's see how long Lawrence is out for. It's his non-throwing arm, so that's probably a positive out of it. But if he's out long-term, it really hurts like Brian Thomas Jr., Evan Engram. It hurts them all. And they're just dead to me after that. So, because Mac Jones just isn't an NFL starting QB. So,
has he ever supported anyone that's fantasy relevant? I don't think he has.
Yes.
It's a shame, but yeah, unfortunately, Brian Thomas is done until if Trevor Lawrence gets back. Wouldn't surprise me if they shut him down for the year. They're 2-8. They're not playing for anything. Like I think Brian Thomas is kind of done. If you can cash your chips, he's a guy that I would sell low on. Like if I could get anything at all of merit for a Brian Thomas while he's still wide receiver 10, I'd do it. Like wide receiver 10 and half PPR.
And there is rumors that Lawrence could be out for the year too, so it is a concern. But let's just hold and just see how he's going. But if you're going to sell, you have to sell now. And
it could be worth going to that bloke. Oh, sorry, mate. You go.
You keep going.
I was going to say it could be worth. That's the kind of trade piece. You go to the guy on top of your ladder who's 8-2. And they're looking pretty steady. You say, look, here, take the risk on the wide receiver 10 and give me, someone off your bench so you can get someone, or, try to build some depth up on someone that's been pretty average. You can take that dart throw if you're towards the bottom end and you're pushing for a final spot, because the guy at the top of the list, if he can take a risk on getting the wide receiver 10, if Trevor Lawrence comes back, he's probably going to take that risk.
Oh, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. On to the next game, mate. We're going to go to the Chiefs and the Broncos, and this was a bit of a wild game in the end. And they seem to have a lot of wild games. Mate, even last year they had some wild games too.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll start off with the Chiefs, mate. They somehow find a way to keep doing it. Now, again, as you like to say, cream does rise to the top, and Patrick Mahomes, I guess he is cream. Now, all in all, it was Hopkins versus Satan, and Hopkins was pretty irrelevant. It was okay, but fantasy-wise, I think it was a 7. Just that's a nothing score to me. So Satan has taken another victim, and Kareem Hunt saw 11 targets as a result, which was not on my bingo card.
Definitely not. Definitely, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. So a lot was left to Patty Mahomes. They just can't seem to blow teams out. Doesn't matter who it is. They seem to be stuck in these like heavy grind, pull it out on the last drive of the game. Wild defensive stop on that field goal attempt today. So much fun. Their defense is so good. Their offense looks really lackluster at the moment, but Kansas defense is very, very solid. What they get, there was only 2 sacks, but the pressure that they're putting, honestly, it's just because Bo Nix is so good outside the pocket. He can scramble. He's very elusive. But I love what I'm seeing from Bo Nix. I think he's going to be like, this is going to come back and bite me. He's got like bona fide superstar potential. He's so good. I love he makes good decisions. He's super mobile. He's accurate. Of course, he's a rookie. He's making mistakes, but Bo Nix is showing some really, really exciting signs. I'm a big fan of his.
Mate, I agree. I don't disagree. I wasn't huge on him coming into the year. I was thinking at the start of the year, thinking, Bo Nix, shit offense. He's just going to be hung out there to dry. Mate, he's made the best of this offense and more. They should have won today. They should have gone to 6-4. But, it's positive signs. But negative signs would be Javonte Williams, mate. He saw 1 carry for the game. He is pretty much in that doghouse. He's done. And Estime saw 14 carries. So the rookie running back looks like he might be taking over the backfield moving forward. And be a sneaky good pick-up in the waivers for sure.
Yeah, he's probably top of my waiver list. Not completely unprecedented. Sean Payton did say he was going to throw the magnets around and, give some guys some opportunities to see, if they could get something going. So it was always going to happen that Audric Estime, he's been saying it for like 4 weeks now. So Audric Estime was always going to get the chance. And I'm glad that he looked good against a good defense. He still averaged just under 4 a carry. It didn't get any passing work, which isn't ideal, but I didn't mind what I saw from Estime. He's got potential. You got to see it for another couple of weeks. Again, I'm not burning high priority. I'm not spending a whole heap of waiver money on him, but there's also not that much out there in waivers, so he's definitely worth a stash.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think Javonte will be seeing much work in the next couple of weeks, to be honest with you, mate. He looks slow. Yeah. He looks like a guy that's on 5 knees, to be honest with you. Just hasn't got that ability to break through with speed like he was coming into the NFL when he first got drafted. But yeah, I'm extremely worried about him, mate, as a fantasy owner moving forward. I think he's on the way out. But also on the other end, mate, on the receiving end, Cortland Sutton just keeps getting it done with Bo Nix too. He's just a sneaky good flex play nearly every week. He scores nearly every week.
Very safe.
He's fine. Like, he'll have a couple of bad weeks here and there, but all in all, mate, he just gets it done.
Yeah, well, he's had. Granted, there was that donut against the Saints in week 7. Outside of that, he's only had 2 games under 6 half PPR points all year, but 6 games out of the 10 in double digits. Like that, you're thrilled with that. Take that donut out. He's, pushing the top 12. Cortland Sutton looks, considering what he was like last year, dude.
Yeah.
Like or was it the year before when Russell Wilson first came in? Everyone's like, Cortland Sutton's going to push top 12. Looked hopeless. People were dropping him. It was not nice at all. And he finished like wide receiver 47 or something. But Cortland Sutton looks re-energized. He looks happy. He's getting the ball in good spots. He's making it count. Like you'd be feeling pretty good if you've got him as a flex.
Fucking oath he would be. But yeah, other than that, mate, Travis Kelce's returning back to Travis Kelce form. He may be the number one tight end for the remainder of the year. He's got the connection back with Mahomes, so he's looking good. And Pacheco is back in 2, maybe 3 weeks, I reckon. So I don't know that's going to look like for the Kareem Hunt Pacheco split. They might ease Pacheco back into it, and then he goes nuts. But that is one to monitor for the next couple of weeks. But in saying that, I'd be starting to try and sell Kareem Hunt. Trying to cash in now, and then if you get something good for him, mate, then fucking well done to you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I'm not desperately trying to move him. They've already had their bye. So with all these buys coming up in week 12, week 14, he's a good guy to have there. I don't think they're going to, like you said, they're not going to go hard on Pacheco. They're 9-0. They don't need to reinvent the wheel now. They don't need to risk Pacheco re-injury. I think at worst they might go to like a 60-40 backfield split, kind of like it was with Jerome Ford and Kareem Hunt at the Browns last year. Like it was kind of ugly. It was kind of hard to trust either one, but they were kind of productive for actual football. I think that's what it'll be like while they try to protect Pacheco. But again, it's with the bye weeks coming up. You got Buffalo, Carolina, Vegas. The next 3 weeks are okay for the, for running backs. You could probably hold him for 1 or 2 more and then move him coming in for someone that does need a running back in the buys. But you could probably maximize what you return with the buys as well. So if you've got the depth, you can move him for sure.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Let's move on to the next game, which was I did not expect Derek Carr to come out and have this sort of game, but we're going to go to the Saints and the Falcons, where the Saints got a win. But Derek Carr always seems like when he has his back against the wall, no Olave, no Shaheed, comes out and just dominated. Made Atlanta look a bit silly. MVS came out and had those 2 long balls. And
mate.
I think Patty Mahomes was watching that game going, why didn't he do it for me?
Why can't you do that with a generational QB? Like,
so he looks like a boss. Again, I wouldn't be smacking some fab onto him. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't be waving anything onto him. I don't love it. But all in all, mate, it was a really good game. Kamara was probably the disappointing one in the end. Had another touchdown. That was probably a 50 or 60-yard touchdown that he just dropped. Very similar to what Josh Downs did.
Yeah, down the left side. Yeah. It happens. Like, I'm not worried about Kamara. I'm not suddenly thinking, his wrist or his ribs are cooked. Like, he's been banged up. It was a bad drop. He's still look. You could tell from a million miles away that Atlanta's game plan was always going to be stop Kamara and you should beat the Saints because they've just got nothing else. And despite that, he was still able to, what do you rattle off? Over 3 yards a carry. Like, it's a bad game for him, but he was still productive. You're not upset about that. Like, he did well. If that's his flaw, you're laughing.
I agree. And mate, all in all, it was just a game that I just did not expect it to happen from Derek Carr. He was awesome. But other than Kamara, there wasn't really other fantasy relevant options here that you go sitting there going, well, I know it was just one of those guys, or one of those games, the Saints are such where you just look at it and go, whatever.
Agreed.
But on the Falcon side of things, mate, Bijan Robinson has been like the number one running back for the last, 6-7 weeks, give or take. I don't know if you saw that one play. They ran Algier twice in the red zone, couldn't get it done, and then ran Bijan on 4th down. He instantly got it done. So it makes you wonder why they just didn't go with Bijan in the first place. But whatever, he's still a boss. Drake London was fine, mate. He was questionable coming into the game, but still saw I think it was 11 targets in the end, and was very, very productive as well. And he's just eating it up with Cousins, and so is Darnell Mooney, and so is Pitts. They're all looking pretty good, but they caught the loss this week, and that's a pretty bad loss in the grand scheme of things.
It is, and like if they were sitting at 4-6, they might have an outside shot, but that's probably the Saints. Atlanta. They're 6-4. If they were 7-3, they're sitting pretty. From memory, their division is really quite competitive. Like almost, I think 3 of the 4 or 4 of the 5 are all over 500. So it's a bad loss for them to take. And again, looking at their upcoming schedule, they've got Denver, the bye, Chargers, Mini. Like the next 4 weeks is not a fun time for the Falcons, for fantasy as well. So gonna be interesting. They need to win those games, so they're gonna keep the starters in. They're gonna, they need to be playing really, really well. And we've seen them play like the best team in the comp at times this year.
I'm not overreacting. I'm not underreacting to any player that I see in this game and go, oh yeah, like he's gonna be going to the moon, or he's gonna be droppable or tradable or buy low, sell high. I like every single option on this Falcons offense still. They're going to be fine for the remainder of the year as long as Kirk Cousins stays healthy, because he loves flinging it around making these guys look good. So it's fine for me.
Yeah, and funny enough, you say you're not, taking them to the moon. Darnell Mooney is a buy target. I think he's half PPR wide receiver 12, and somehow he's not talked about in trade circles. He's so underrated. He's averaging like 8.5 targets a game. He's a security blanket for Kirk. If you can have a conversation with the guy who owns Mooney, because he's definitely worth having for that stretch run.
Nice. Let's move on to the next game, mate. It was the Niners and the Bucks, which was actually a really fun game. I really, really, really enjoyed this game. But we did see the returning CMC. I did not know what to expect out of CMC, might I add. I was thinking he might see maybe 30% of the work at most and ease him into it. But they were like, nah, fuck him. We're going to use him and give him work and try and kill him early. And look, he looked good. He's a bit rusty still, don't get me wrong. But you can see the next 2 or 3 weeks when he gets his legs under himself, starts getting more game reps, that he's going to be back to Christian McCaffrey sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the only difference now, he only averaged 3 yards a carry on his rushes against a relatively stout rushing defense. Like through the air, he looked as dynamic, as impactful as possible, as impossible to tackle as ever. Like I have zero worries about CMC. He is a plug and play. Expect top 5 performances every week from here on out.
Agreed. Purdy looked really, really good. I thought he played a really good game. But Juwan Jennings for me, mate, probably the guy that I'm looking at going, I'm really impressed by him. He has that connection with Brock Purdy. He could be a sneaky flex option for the remainder of the year. There's no Ayuk. I mean, Ricky Pearson was pretty good today, had that nice long ball touchdown. That's really, really nice, might I add. But Juwan Jennings has a consistent focal point role in this offense. There's still a Kittle. Deebo Samuel might be in trouble internally. With that incident with the long snapper, he might see a game suspension or 2. I think he deserves it. I think that's a terrible look. I'd be suspending him no matter what and set some standards at your club. But Juwan Jennings for me, mate. If he's on your waiver wire, pick him up. If he's not, if he's on your bench, you probably play him at this point.
Yeah, same with Ricky Pearsall. I think if Debo's out, definitely both. But as long as Ayuk's out, you can start Jennings with the utmost confidence. He fits into that Y spot exactly where Ayuk was. I even run him as an X receiver most of the time. Like he's that number 1 target guy. He gets the first read a lot of the time, whereas Debo's that gadget guy. Jennings will keep getting targets. He's definitely worth having. And if he's probably going to be your flex guy because of his waiver spot. Like you're very, very happy with that kind of player.
Shit, yeah. But yeah, all in all, mate, Jordan Mason saw absolutely nothing. He's now pretty much back to handcuff. And same with Garendo too. He was picked up last week on a couple of teams, but I don't know why. We just knew this was going to happen sooner rather than later. But on the Bucs side of things, mate, I really, really do like Baker Mayfield, but he had a bit of an off game today. Only threw 116 yards and a touchdown. But I tell you what, the one play where Nick Bosa was hung on his arm and he made him look a little bitch.
That was so sick. That was so sick. I love Baker. He's a gamer, dude. He just does what he can. This is the Baker that the Browns thought they were drafting when they drafted him. And I understand why they gave up on him, but oh my God, he's so much fun to watch. I love Baker. He's QB3. No one expected it. It's only his second subpar game of the year. You take it. Like against San Fran. He made it competitive, even with a tough game with 3 fumbles. He made it competitive. It was a really, really fun game. Great showing for him. Bucky Irving looked amazing.
Yeah. Mate, so did Rashad White. He looked amazing. Kate Otton's still doing what Kate Otten does. 5 for 35 on a pretty average game is if that's his floor, then fuck yeah. For a tight end, fucking oath.
Tight ends, you're chasing targets, and he's going to be good for anywhere from 5 to 10 targets a game for the rest of the year. So
keep in mind they do have a bye next week, and they do believe Mike Evans is back in week 12. So I don't think Mike Evans will command 10 targets a game. Mike Evans will still get you between your 6 to 8 targets, dominate on those targets, and probably have a touchdown to go with it too. So watch that. But I think he'll be back in week 12. But that may hurt Rashad White if that's the case, because he's been getting a lot of passing work as a running back. So that may hurt him. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yep. Agreed.
Let's move on to the next game, mate. It was the Steelers and the Commanders. Now I'm going to start with the Commanders. Now there was no Brian Robinson today, so Eckler got another full workload and looked really, really good. They are in a bit of a pickle where they don't just, they got 2 really solid running backs, and they sort of have to lean on one to a degree. I guess whoever's hot, given the ball, I think that's probably where they're at. But McLaurin didn't have a score today, but again, just garners 113 yards, whatever it was, top of my head. I think it was 113. And looks like he's a top 10 wide receiver the remainder of the year. He finally gets his good QB and looks amazing.
Yeah, sorry, my roommate's just tried to knock on my door. Terry McLaurin is like I feel like I've said this like 4 blokes of the wide receiver 7, but he looks phenomenal. He looks hyper impactful. He's getting targets. He's got such a good rapport with Daniels. He's plug and play. He's set and forget. He's very, very solid.
One to watch as well. On the Steelers side of things would be the Harris went down with an injury. I actually haven't seen how bad that injury is, but Jalen Warren did come in and played quite well in his absence. Let me just quickly search up Najee Harris, mate, and see what the report is if they've got anything on.
So I haven't seen anything about an injury. I thought it was just game script and kind of going with the hot hand, but I'm happy to be proved wrong with that one.
No,
Jalen Warren
looks like he's okay, mate. You're right. Looks like he's fine. Yeah. So
I think it was just an Arthur Smith doing Arthur Smith things, and Jalen Warren looked relatively good right at the beginning of the game, and he was giving Washington headaches, so he kind of earned himself the hot hand, which is a little worrying if you're a Najee owner, but Najee still had 21 carries and a touchdown. He still got the red zone work, so you could, again, if you've got Najee, he's probably your flex running back anyway. So I
hate Najee, man. And you know me in our home league, I've drafted him 2 years in a row, and he was terrible. And now he starts playing well. I
held him all year, and I had him all year until week 6, and since then he's rattled off a 19, a 16, a 14, and a 12. So he can go fuck himself.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Too. I've been Biggsy's been in my DMs, mate, trying to sell him to me. And I said I can't do it, mate. I just cannot do it. He's killed me too many times. Mate. He knows. Yeah. But I really do enjoy George Pickens as well, mate. His jump balls are like nearly one of the best in the league. But in saying that, you can throw it to him in double coverage and he'll still come up with the ball and bring it down. So remainder of the year with Russell Wilson. Remainder of the year with Russell Wilson, he should absolutely cook. So I think I see him as a top 20 wide receiver for sure.
Yeah, for sure. A little bit of a funny one. I saw a tweet today saying, with George Pickens, it's either spectacular catch or ignore the ball to go fight someone, and there's no in between. He's so fun to watch, dude. He's so rogue. He doesn't care. He's either blowing your mind with a wild catch or he's trying to fight someone. Like, it's the best.
He's got the white line fever, man. I don't mind that.
Big time.
I don't mind that.
Yeah, big fan of it. Big fan of it.
But all in all, mate, Mike Williams played his first game, had that game-winning touchdown,
Yeah.
which was interesting. I don't think he'll have a massive role for the remainder of the year, but it's just another option there for Russell Wilson to use. And yeah, other than that, nothing else in that game that I like.
Yeah, just on Mike Williams, I don't mind picking him up and stashing him purely for the fact that we know that Russell Wilson can support multiple wide receivers at a time, and they'd both be fantasy relevant. So they went out, they tried to get Ayuk. They tried getting 4 different wide receivers, and they landed on Mike Williams. There's clearly a need there. They want to incorporate a second wide receiver. They want to have those 2 wide out sets. So he could be a pick up and stash. I wouldn't play him straight away, but there's a small world where Mike Williams does come relevant, in my opinion. So it's a long shot, but he could, if you've got the bench space, if you've got some spuds on your bench just filling up holes, then I'd maybe drop one for Mike.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Let's move on to the next game, mate. It was the Chargers and the Titans. I'm going to start with the Titans. I'm going to start with the Titans, mate. Because there's one man in this lineup that I'm looking at that I am just a little bit concerned about for the remainder of the year, and that would be Tony Pollard.
TP.
Only reason why I say that is throughout the week they've sort of said they want to manage him in games, through practices, everything like that. I was like, oh, yeah, cool. He should still see 15 plus carries, I thought. Considering he's been seeing 20, 28, 16, 17, I thought he'd still have 15 carries minimum, and that's fine. He had 9 today. I know the game script wasn't in their favour, but it hasn't been in their favour for the last 6 weeks, and he still saw shitloads of carries. So I'm a little worried there about Tony Pollard. Even the passing work, he was okay, 4 for 19. That's fine. But are you worried too? Or is it just me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely tempering expectations. The first game that Tajay Spears is back off injury, and he essentially a 50-50 split. It was 9 carries to 7. There was 3 targets in the backfield compared to 4. Like, it was essentially, the same, the same kind of production from both running backs. So I think that will likely continue. It'll be as close to a 50-50 split as you could see, and they might just try to ride the hot hand on the way home. So again, you might not get much for Pollard. If you can, trade him off. By the same token, if you can get Spears for nothing, bring him in, because it could end up being where they do a reverse of what we've seen so far, and they want to rest Pollard for a run next year because he's 27. We know that running backs fall off a cliff. They're 2-7. Tennessee's year's done. Maybe they want to get some running to the 23-year-old, see what he can do. So Tajay Spears might be someone to look at.
And especially Pollard's next 2 weeks, he's got Minnesota and Houston, so pretty good 2-run defenses as such. But then his schedule does open up for the remainder of the year. So maybe they're just going to try and just nurture him through the next couple of weeks and let him go off for the next few. I don't know, but all in all, mate, I'm a bit worried there. But he's been efficient for the whole year, so I don't know. I don't understand why.
He's been good.
I'd be fine giving him the ball and keep using him because he's very good.
It's the Tony Pollard we thought we were getting in the second round last year. It's good to see him actually produce.
Yeah. It was the return of Will Levis as well. He was actually okay. He was fine. Used Ridley a lot. Ridley was fine. 2 touchdowns. Don't know what to expect for the remainder of the year on that. It's going to be up and down for mine. As a Ridley, I don't own Ridley in any leagues personally. In all my 7 leagues, I don't own Ridley. But Ridley's always been a roller coaster. You just don't know what he's going to do. Goes big or has a 1.5. So he'll probably continue to do that.
Yeah, agreed.
On the other side of things, mate, it was the return of Gus Edwards. Now, J.K. Dobbins is still the number 1, don't get me wrong. But Gus Edwards is going in there, taking some carries off him again, just to try and spot him. Don't break him down.
And he's fresh.
He is.
He's had 5 weeks off. He's fresh. That's one to watch.
It is one to watch. I'm not too worried just yet because it was 15 carries. Well, it was 15 carries to 10, might I add. And, it's fine. But God, I can see it going to a 50-50 split at some stage.
Yeah. And look, J.K. Dobbins, people are probably still distracted by his first 2 weeks where he had 135 and 131 yards. He was leading the league in broken tackles, averaging, over 10 yards a carry, like blowing people out of the water. Since then, he's been mostly single digits, averaging less than 3 yards a carry. J.K. Dobbins has been really lackluster. So they're 6-3. It looks like J.K. Dobbins needs a break because he hasn't played a full season in his entire career. So he's going to need a bit of a spell coming into what they hope to be a playoff run, likely a wildcard run. They need to protect who they think, who they rely on in the running back room. I see a world, and probably more likely than not, I think that Gus Edwards comes in, could have a 50-50 share similar to Pollard and Spears, but could even take over the next couple of weeks because he's so much fresher.
I'm glad you said that because he is one of my top priority running back ads this week. I would be putting in some fab. I don't know how much, anywhere between 10 to 15%. I'd go a bit heavy on him. He's done it before. The OC that they were together last year at the Ravens. I actually expected that Gus Edwards would be the number one at the start of the year, and then obviously he wasn't. Lost his role through, but I think this could turn the other way, or at least a 50-50 split. And Edwards becomes the power back that we expected at the start of the year. Mate, if you're getting him for 15% of your fab, stash him on your bench, I'm happy with that. It might not turn out to be that way, but it's worth the addition.
Yeah, and if you feel you need more than what we've just said as a reason to add him, do yourself a favor and look at his game logs from last year, because from week 7 onwards, he had 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns in the last 10 weeks between week 7 and he was a proper league winner last year. Granted, and that's with a bye. So that was a game that he missed against the Pats. So Gus Edwards is super good in the red zone. The Chargers defense is league best. Their offense is starting to click as well. He could be a league winner. I temper expectations. Like, take a breath. Don't empty the kit for him. But he's got potential. It's in the range of outcomes.
It's worth an addition for sure. Yeah, there's nothing surer, in my opinion.
Yep.
Now,
I know who you're getting in waivers this week then.
You've just given you a red hot tip that I'm going for.
I got 3 fab, mate. I'm not competing. That's yours.
Yeah, for now until you start trading for some fab. But all in all, mate, I'm gonna probably not mention any of the wide receivers at
I agree. Yeah.
It's just
if for some weird reason you're in a 10-teamer, if Lad McConkey's on your waivers, pick him up. But other than that, I'm not worrying about anyone.
I agree. So the next game, mate, was the Jets and the Cardinals, and the Jets lost again. I find this hilarious. And this is being a Cowboy supporter too, but I still find this hilarious. And they got dominated too, mate. And I'm going to mention the Jets to start off with. Are we worried about, I think Garrett Wilson is fine. Are we worried about Devontae Adams' fantasy outlook for the remainder of the year?
Nah, I'm not. I'm really not. And I can understand why you could worry that I'm biased, being that I just made a move for Devontae Adams. I actually traded Garrett Wilson for Devontae Adams. He's getting the lion's share of the targets. It's clear that when they need to move the ball, Aaron Rodgers is still looking there. And I think this is just, people had this expectation that it would immediately be what it was at the Packers the second he got there, because they were so good together and they're friends. That doesn't mean that it's going to, immediately coalesce in a brand new offense with a new offensive coordinator, different cadence, all these little 1%ers are going to change. I think as people move up, Benny G, that's hilarious. That's so good. I think Devontae's going to come good. And again, their schedule opens right up. They got Indy, the bye, Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, Rams, Buffalo between now and the grand final weeks. Their schedule opens right up. They're still a sieve on defense. I think they're going to have to keep throwing. I'm okay. Honestly, I'm very comfortable having Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams moving forward. But there's honestly, outside of those two and Brees Hall, I don't want any other Jets.
So I had an offer today in my DMs in another league where Garrett Wilson was posed to me for McLaurin, and there was a couple of small options there that really weren't relevant at all, to be honest. But that was the core of the trade. I said no, I'd rather McLaurin. I think he's a safe, consistent option. But Garrett Wilson has that upside where he can win you weeks, but also can lose you weeks. So I decided I'd keep with the consistent option. My team is in that position where I need more consistency. But yeah, I agree with you, mate. I think it's still okay. I'm more up on Garrett Wilson than I am Devonta. But again, once the schedule opens up, they'll probably both eat again like they did last week. So, but in saying that, the Cardinals' defense isn't that good. But for some reason, they've been sneaky good the last couple of weeks, which is making me sort of guess, are they actually just okay now, or what are they doing?
Well, I mean, it's a good point you bring up. Like, look at them over the last 4 weeks. They kept granted it's the Chargers, but they kept the Chargers to 15. Miami put up points, put up 27, but Chicago to 9, 6 to the Jets. Like, I don't think the Cardinals are particularly good. I think they've been the beneficiary of a decent schedule the last couple of weeks, but it's allowed the offense to start clicking. And that's the most exciting part. Kyler looks like the guy you thought you were getting in the draft. James Conner is still doing James Conner things. Trey Benson's actually looking a little bit more comfortable in NFL offense. Marvin Harrison, his rapport with Kyler just continues to grow. Trey McBride's looking healthy. Like, Arizona's offense is looking really, really tidy.
Agreed, mate. Agreed. I think we should move on from that game and go to the next game, which I don't really want to talk much about, to be honest, but it will be the Cowboys and the Eagles.
I could be here all day, mate. How much depth do you want to go into?
Mate, this game was gross. The thing that got me the most was the sunlight coming through AT&T Stadium and made CeeDee Lamb just lose track of the ball. That was just embarrassing for mine, but it's been like that for years, and I'm surprised it hasn't been mentioned earlier. But it's been like that for 100%. Years, mate.
Because you guys were winning games before, didn't
you? Yeah, that's probably why. But all in all, mate, I think it's going to be Trey Lance moving forward. I don't like it, but Cooper Rush, you cannot play him. You just play Trey Lance and see what he's got. You may be able to get some value from him.
What would you rather do? Have Trey Lance or trade like a 6th round pick for Anthony Richardson and play him?
Well, obviously, I'd rather play Richardson. I'd rather play Richardson.
Would you really? Yeah, right.
Fucking oath. They're not taking a 6th round pick for him.
Yeah, they're not.
They're just not doing that. So, look, I think Trey Lance should start next week and see what he's got. Look, Cowboys season's done now, mate. And now, if I'm a CeeDee Lamb owner, I'm extremely nervous that they might put the ice on him too for the remainder of the year if he gets a couple of little niggles throughout the year, the remainder of the year. But even if he's not, he can't tell me that he's going to be dominating because he's just not. So that's a bit of a concern for CeeDee Lamb. And same with Jake Ferguson too. So they're pretty much done to me due to poor QB play. And the Eagles, mate, there's not much really to say about the Eagles except for they just did what they needed to do. AJ Brown was probably the most surprising for me that, coming off the injury, played, dominated, and Devonta Smith saw 2 catches. So,
mate, the most surprising for me was Saquon Barkley. I think from advanced metrics, Dallas is like bottom 5 or bottom 8 in almost every rushing category. They give the most 20-yard runs. They give up most first downs to rushing attempts. I really thought Saquon was going to eat and we were going to see like a 150, 200-yard kind of performance. And he still got 14 carries, but he just, I guess he wasn't needed. So they didn't need to play him. Yeah, it was a bit of a gross one.
It wasn't needed. And like they just put the ice on him and said, mate, just rest up. So, yeah,
which he deserves. He deserves the rest. Fine.
Exactly. Let's move on to the final game of the week, mate. And this was this was wild. Monday night, Sunday night football game.
Fun game.
Lions Texans, where we saw 7 interceptions in total and 2 fumbles?
Yeah.
So that was weird. Second half was still weird. It opened up a little bit, but it was fun. It was actually fun.
Fun game.
Sam Laporta went down with an injury. I don't know if he returned. I don't think he did. He may have.
Yeah, his shoulder.
Yeah, so that's one to watch, especially when he's receiving touchdowns. So the first time he actually starts scoring half decent, goes down with an injury. So shame on him. He's killed us all in fantasy for taking him early. He has absolutely butchered you. And mate, the Lions, all in all, yeah,
they got a bit of Kansas City about them, mate. They just find a way to win. That was a real dirty, gritty win that shows they can get it done in playoffs. I think that for mine, that's the best win of their year. If they can somehow get a win against a high-powered offense with 5 picks from their QB, that's a massive, massive win for them. And the Houston defense looked fucking dominant to start that game too.
Yeah, and you know what, mate? So did the Lions defense. They look really good too. Actually bailed them out, to be honest with you. When you have 5 interceptions and they don't score many of those interceptions, and mate, the defense has done its job. But all in all, mate, on the Lions side of things, there wasn't really anything like fantasy-wise. Like everyone scored between, 7 to 15 points. So Amon-Ra St. Brown was 15 points, 6 to 8 and a touchdown, which is fine. Montgomery 12.1, 12 carries, 32 and a touchdown, saved by that one goal line carry. Gibbs had 19 carries today for 71 yards and very minimal passing work. It was just spread across the field really with the Lions. So Jamison Williams came back from suspension, didn't really see much. He saw 5.
He was I think the 3 for 5 for 53 and like whatever that scoring is in your league. That doesn't do justice to how well he played though. He did a phenomenal job. Some of his catches, he got beaten the shit out of today. He copped some massive hits and still came down with big catches, important first downs. Like he had a massive game, and that kind of stuff is what gets you more opportunities down the track, especially from a big old chonky man like Dan Campbell. So Jamison Williams, big game for him.
Dan Campbell would have been eating glass after those catches too, I reckon.
Yes,
that's my man.
Yeah, that's my man.
Now, on the other side of things, mate, I'm still really, really disappointed in CJ Stroud. Now, he's had a really good QB year in terms of just managing games, winning games of football. But on a fantasy perspective, mate, it's honestly been gross viewing. QB 18 this week, QB 24 last week, QB 26 last week, or the week before, 29 week before that. Like he's had 2 top 10s this year, and this guy was drafted as a top 3 to top 5 option at QB. Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs hurts, but like elite QBs make everyone else better, and he has yet to do that, in my opinion. But he's still a young kid, mate. He's still learning the game.
Yeah, he'll come good. Yeah.
I still have no concern for him moving forward in terms of 2025 and beyond. But the remainder of the year, man, I'm sort of out on him on fantasy for the remainder of the year. Unless Nico comes back and dominates, I'm a bit worried about his outlook for the rest of the year.
Yeah, there's just no rushing upside with CJ Stroud, and Joe Mixon coming in and being as good of a fit as he is. They made him captain throughout the week. I don't know if you caught that on the broadcast today. Like Joe Mixon has become almost a part of the identity of the Texans. And like he had 25 carries and 4 targets. CJ Stroud only threw the ball 33 times. So it's 29 overall opportunities for Joe Mixon, 33 opportunities for CJ Stroud. Like it's as close to a 50-50 split as you're going to get. That obviously caps CJ's ceiling quite a bit.
Mate, and the last 4 weeks he's had 25 carries a game, Mixon. So albeit today was the week where he came against the Detroit Lions run defense and absolutely killed him. 1.84 yards per carry, and literally it was that. He did not move at all. He could not go anywhere. Apart from that 6 or 7 yard rushing touch in the end of the first quarter. That was the longest game. That was the longest game that he saw. So
I was thrilled seeing that. Buried. I was so worried. Because I'm a Mixon owner. I was so worried about his game. But seeing that go through and that saved the day, that touchdown. But I mean, he's got Dallas next week. Joe Mixon,
plug and play.
he's good.
Yeah. Tank Dell was all right too.
Yeah.
5 for 9 for 39. That was okay. But all in all, mate, it was pretty gross for the Texans for fantasy wise. I just think that CJ Stroud is just been very disappointing for mine. He's QB 17 on the year, so I think that's more than fair to say that.
Yep, agreed.
All right, mate. I think we should wrap this up.
Mate.
Appreciate you jumping in on short notice.
Of course, apologies for the tech issues, and if there's any delay in my responses and stuff throughout that, I apologise. Having some PC issues, but it's been a pleasure as always, mate.
Always, mate. And in our home league, mate, we talk a lot of crap in there, but I'm going to end this off with saying that Pamela Powell's got the loss this week, mate, against me.
Yeah, and there's nothing I could be happier about.
So yeah,
good news story for the week.
They can suck it. So anyway, cheers for tuning in. Hope it's been a good one.
See you guys.
We think it amazing.